All right, so today we're going deep on human history,
Okay.
but with a twist.
Right.
Get ready to see ourselves through the eyes of bears.
Now that's a perspective
It is.
that you don't get every day.
Yeah, so we're exploring this fictional lecture
Okay.
from a book series called New Bears for the 21st Century,
Hmm.
specifically an excerpt from A Bear's Adventure Tale.
Right.
And picture this. A world where humans are gone.
Okay.
And bears are the ones studying our past.
Okay.
What would they find fascinating,
Yeah.
puzzling, maybe even a little funny about us?
That's like holding up a mirror to humanity,
Yeah,
but with a furry paw holding it.
exactly. So we're listening in on a lecture
Okay.
by this bear professor,
Jeremy.
Professor Jeremy Honeytide,
Okay.
to a class of bear students.
Gotcha.
And this professor isn't your typical dry academic.
Yeah.
He throws in jokes, real-world examples,
Mm-hmm.
even a funny story about a polar bear rowing team
Oh, wow.
trying to recreate a Viking voyage.
So he keeps things lively.
Oh, yeah, he knows how to keep his students engaged.
Right.
But he also dives into some thought-provoking ideas about humans.
Like what?
Well, one of the first things he brings up
Okay.
is this savage genius paradox.
Hmm. Okay.
He argues that humans were capable of incredible things,
Yeah.
like building empires and creating art,
Sure.
but also prone to unbelievable acts of cruelty and self-destruction.
Huh. That is fascinating, isn't it? This idea that the same species
Yeah,
that could produce a Shakespeare
right.
could also engage in devastating wars.
Absolutely.
What do you think about this? What do you think as our listener about this duality in human nature?
It's a great question to consider.
Yeah.
Professor Honeytide also challenges this assumption
Okay.
that all humans were brilliant intellectuals.
Okay.
He points to their obsession with things like soap operas,
Oh, really?
their susceptibility to addiction,
Hmm.
especially to tobacco.
Interesting.
He even calls tobacco the indigenous Americans' slow-motion revenge on Europeans.
Wow.
A bit dark, sure, but it definitely makes you think.
It does. It reminds us that intelligence isn't a universal trait, even within a species.
Yeah,
And it really raises questions about how we define intelligence in the first place.
right.
I mean, are we really so smart if we can't overcome self-destructive behaviors?
That's a good point. Professor Honeytide goes on to explore human strengths, too.
Okay.
Specifically, their talent for conquest.
Okay.
He uses the example of the Roman Empire,
Mm.
which, as he points out to his students,
Yeah.
reached the very town where the lecture takes place,
Wow.
Kilsyth, Scotland,
Okay.
near the Antonine Wall.
Interesting.
This really brings the historical lesson home for those bear students,
Right.
showing how human history touched even their own backyard.
I see. Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder, as the listener,
Yeah.
about the cost of that conquest.
Well,
Was it worth it in the end?
good question. This leads into one of the biggest questions, really.
Yeah.
What caused human extinction?
Right. Professor Honeytide attributes it to a combination of factors,
Like what?
things like resource scarcity,
Okay.
advanced weaponry,
Mm.
and their inherent self-destructive tendencies.
Okay.
He compares the end of humanity to a big bang of rage,
Wow.
a stark contrast to the universe's big bang of creation.
So he's painting kind of a bleak picture,
He is. It's pretty bleak.
but also thought-provoking.
Yeah,
If a species as intelligent as humans could self-destruct,
right.
what does that say about our own potential for making better choices?
Good question. Now, Professor Honeytide wouldn't be a true professor without a little bit of speculation.
Of course.
He throws out some darkly humorous ideas
Okay,
about
there-
what bears might have done with any surviving humans.
Like what?
Things like hunting them,
Okay.
using them in circus acts,
Oh, wow.
or even as ingredients in questionable medicines.
Interesting. It's a morbidly funny thought experiment,
It is.
but it raises an interesting point. Humans, for all their intelligence,
Right.
could have easily become just another exploited species
Yeah.
if the tables were turned.
Absolutely. And to really drive this point home,
Okay.
Professor Honeytide projects an image of a human onto a screen
Okay.
and asks his students, "Doesn't seem particularly aggressive, does he?
Hmm.
In fact," he says, "you'd quite possibly invite him round to visit your grandbear for honey tea."
Oh, wow.
But then with a touch of that signature dry wit,
Yeah.
he adds, "But appearances, as we know, are often deceiving."
It's a clever way to challenge their assumptions.
Is.
The image of a seemingly harmless human
Yeah,
forces the bear students
right.
and us as listeners
Mm-hmm.
to confront the deceptive nature of appearances
Absolutely.
and the complex reality of a species,
Yeah.
capable of both great and terrible things.
Right. And that leads us into Professor Honeytide's exploration of human evolution.
Okay.
So he's standing there in front of his class
Yeah.
with that projected image of a human. And he starts to delve into some of the prevailing theories
Right.
about human evolution.
About how they got to be the way they were.
Exactly. And one of the most intriguing theories he puts forward
Okay.
is that a fish-heavy diet,
Mhm.
specifically in coastal regions,
Okay.
might have played a significant role
Interesting.
in the development of human intelligence.
So, like, eating a lot of fish made them smarter.
That's the theory. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we know omega-3 fatty acids are good for brain health.
Right.
But could a steady diet of salmon have actually boosted their cognitive abilities?
It's a fascinating hypothesis.
It is.
And it's backed up by some real science.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, studies have shown that docosahexaenoic acid,
Okay.
or DHA,
Mm-hmm.
which is abundant in fatty fish,
Right.
is crucial for brain development and function.
Interesting. And of course, Professor Honeytide, being a bear,
Uh-huh.
can't resist having a little fun with this idea.
I bet.
He describes his bear students scratching their heads and wondering,
Yeah.
why didn't we just eat more salmon?
It's funny. It's a humorous moment
It is.
that highlights the unexpected connections in nature.
It does.
Here we have bears
Right.
contemplating the role of salmon in human evolution.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. It really underscores how interconnected everything is,
Yeah.
even across species.
For sure. And this idea of interconnectedness
Yeah.
really comes through when Professor Honeytide drops a bombshell about human genetics.
Oh, it's
He reveals that humans and bees, those
Love it.
buzzing little pollinators,
Yeah.
actually share some distant genetic links.
that's not something you hear every day.
It really challenges our perceptions
Yeah.
of how different species are related.
For sure.
And it goes to show that evolution isn't always a straight line.
Yeah,
There are all sorts of twists and turns
Right.
and unexpected connections along the way.
absolutely. And those unexpected connections don't stop there.
Oh, really?
Professor Honeytide even hints at some surprising possibilities
Okay.
about the ancestors of bears themselves.
Oh, wow.
Some theories he explains link bears to walruses,
Walruses.
sea lions, and seals.
Interesting.
Others point to a small dog-like creature.
A dog.
You can almost hear those bear students chuckling
I bet.
at the thought of a tiny yipping ancestor
Right.
in their family tree.
That's a funny image, but beyond the humor,
Yeah.
it raises an important point
What's that?
about the complexity of evolution.
Right.
We often think of evolution as
Yeah.
this linear progression,
Uh-huh.
but in reality, it's a messy
Yeah.
branching process
Right.
with all sorts of surprises along the way.
Absolutely. And those surprises can be found
Yeah.
not just in the distant past,
Right.
but also in the present.
I see.
Think about all the new species being discovered all the time
That's true.
and all the genetic links
Right.
that are still being uncovered.
Yeah. Speaking of uncovering things, I think it's time we dig a little deeper
Okay.
into one of the most thought-provoking aspects
Yeah.
of Professor Honeytide's lecture.
All right.
The idea that humans were programmed for failure.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. What do you make of it?
Well, it's certainly a provocative idea,
Yeah.
and it's something that he keeps coming back to
Mm-hmm.
throughout the lecture.
Right.
This sense that despite their intelligence,
Yeah.
humans had this deep-seated tendency
Yeah.
to sabotage themselves.
Just self-destruct.
He links this back to that savage genius paradox,
Right.
arguing that their capacity for intellect
Okay.
was ultimately overshadowed by their capacity for self-destruction.
So it sounds like he's suggesting that intelligence
Yeah.
in and of itself
Right.
isn't a guarantee of survival.
Yeah, in fact, it might even be a liability
Oh.
if it's not tempered by wisdom,
Okay.
compassion,
Mm-hmm.
and a sense of long-term consequences.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
It is.
And it makes you wonder, are we as a species still prone
Yeah.
to those same self-destructive tendencies?
A good question.
Are we still programmed for failure?
It's a question worth pondering,
Yeah.
especially given the challenges we face today.
Like what?
Think about climate change, for instance.
Okay.
We have the knowledge and the technology to address it,
We do.
but are we doing enough?
That's the question.
Are we letting short-term gains overshadow the long-term consequences?
It's almost like we're repeating the same mistakes,
Yeah.
just on a grander scale.
Perhaps, but I
Yeah.
think there's also a glimmer of hope
Oh, yeah.
in Professor Honeytide's lecture
What's that?
by acknowledging the darker aspects of human history.
Right.
By confronting our flaws head on,
Okay.
we open up the possibility of learning from them.
It's like that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly.
But in this case, it's not just about remembering, it's
Yeah.
about understanding, about seeing the patterns.
Yeah.
And hopefully, yeah.
About breaking free from them.
And that's where the power of perspective comes in.
Ugh.
By looking at human history through the eyes of bears,
Right.
we gain a new vantage point.
Yeah.
We see things we might not have noticed before.
Well,
We question our assumptions.
that's important. And maybe, just maybe, we
Yeah.
start to make different choices.
Right.
Choices that lead to a more sustainable,
Yeah.
more compassionate,
Yeah.
and ultimately more successful future.
That's the goal.
It is.
So you know what's amazing?
Why?
How this fictional lecture from a bear professor
Yeah.
has given us so much to think about.
It has. What really struck me
Yeah.
is the sheer variety of topics
Uh-huh.
that Professor Honeytide covered,
Right.
from the rise and fall of empires
Mm-hmm.
to the genetic links between humans and bees.
It's a testament to the richness of human history, isn't it?
It is. There's just so much to explore,
Yeah.
so many different perspectives to consider. Right. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this lecture.
What's that?
It encourages us to look beyond the traditional narratives,
Okay.
to challenge our assumptions,
Right.
and to embrace the complexity of the past.
I think you're right. And it's not just about the past, is it?
No.
It's about applying those lessons to the present, to the challenges we face today.
Right when Professor Honeytide talks about human self-destruction,
Yeah.
it's hard not to think about the environmental crises we're facing,
Yeah.
the political divisions, the threats to our own well-being.
Right.
It's like he's holding up a mirror and asking us, have you learned anything
Yeah.
from the mistakes of your ancestors?
That's a powerful question.
It is.
And it's one that we each need to grapple with.
Yeah.
Both individually and collectively.
Absolutely. So what can we do
Yeah.
in our own lives
Right.
to break free from those self-destructive patterns?
Good question. How can we create a future
Yeah.
that's more sustainable,
Uh-huh.
more equitable, more in line with the values we claim to hold dear?
Those are big questions.
They are, for sure.
But I think this lecture gives us some clues.
Okay, like what?
Well, Professor Honeytide emphasizes the importance of perspective,
Okay.
of stepping outside our human-centric view of the world.
Right.
He reminds us that even in the face of our flaws,
Yeah.
there's still potential for growth and change.
I love how he uses humor to drive home those serious points.
Yeah, me too.
It's a brilliant strategy, really.
It is.
It makes the lecture engaging and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Without being preachy or overwhelming.
Exactly. And it also makes you realize
Yeah.
that it's okay to laugh at ourselves,
Right.
even when we're confronting uncomfortable truths.
I agree. In fact, it might be essential.
It might be maybe a little bit of self-deprecating humor
Yeah.
is what we need to shake ourselves out of complacency
Okay.
and start making some real changes.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Humor can be a powerful tool for self-reflection and social change.
It can help us see things in a new light,
All right.
challenge our assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
and connect with others on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a thought experiment.
Okay.
Imagine that you're one of Professor Honeytide's bear students,
Okay.
listening to this lecture for the first time.
Right.
What's the one thing that stands out to you? What's the most surprising,
Yeah.
the most thought-provoking, or even the most hilarious thing
Yeah.
you've learned about humans?
And how would that knowledge shape your understanding of the world,
That's a great question.
of your own place in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah,
Would you look at your fellow bears differently?
right.
Would you be more cautious,
Mhm.
more compassionate,
Yeah.
or maybe even a little bit more amused
Interesting.
by the complexities of existence?
This journey into a bear's perspective on human history
Yeah.
has been anything but ordinary.
It really has.
It's given us a chance to laugh at ourselves, to question our assumptions,
Right.
and to consider the long-term consequences of our actions.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, I think it's left us with a sense of hope,
yeah.
a belief that even though we humans have made our share of mistakes,
Mhm.
we also have the capacity for learning, for
Yeah.
growth,
Yeah.
and for creating a future that's worthy
Yeah.
of our intelligence and our compassion.
And maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
a future where bears and humans can coexist,
Right.
not as rivals or subjects,
Yeah.
but as fellow travelers on this extraordinary journey called life.
That's a beautiful thought.
It is.
All right, so that wraps up our deep dive today on human history
Okay.
as seen through the eyes of bears.
Sounds good.
Until next time.